Doomsday cult mom shocker. Did Lori Vallow and her brother Alex frame her fifth husband, Chad Daybell, for the murders of her son and daughter? That's what Chad's adult children are now claiming. They also deny Chad had anything to do with their own mother's death. But today, we have the romantic and disturbing messages Chad and Lori sent each other before his wife Tammy was killed. And the woman who warned Chad his teachings would lead to death is here, ready to break her silence in an Oz Show exclusive. We've been closely following the case of doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell since Lori's two children were reported missing in December of 2019. But the string of mysterious family-related deaths began several months before that. On July 11, 2019, Lori Vallow's brother, Alex Cox, fatally shoots her estranged fourth husband, Charles. He claims it was self-defense and that he was protecting Lori. But Lori had allegedly threatened to kill Charles if he interfered with her mission as a god during the second coming of Christ. September 8th is reportedly the last time Lori's 16-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan, is seen alive. Then, 2 weeks later, Lori's 7-year-old son, J.J. Vallow, is last seen. On October 19th, Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife of nearly 30 years, dies suddenly, and her body is buried without an autopsy. Just 17 days later, Chad Daybell becomes Lori's fifth husband. On December 11th, authorities exhume Tammy's body. The next day, Lori's brother Alex dies, reportedly from a pulmonary embolism. Then, on June 9th of 2020, authorities discover human remains in Chad Daybell's backyard. Horrifically, they prove to be young JJ, duct-taped and wrapped in plastic, and the burned, dismembered corpse of his sister Tylee. Almost a year later, Chad is indicted for murdering his wife Tammy. Lori's charged with conspiring to murder Tammy and her fourth husband, Charles. They are both charged with first-degree murder for the deaths of Lori's two children. Chad has pleaded not guilty to all charges, while Lori has been committed to a mental health facility and deemed unfit to stand trial until at least 2022. No one has investigated this case more closely than Nate Eaton from East Idaho News. He was in a helicopter above the crime scene when JJ and Tylee's bodies were found in Chad Daybell's backyard. He joins us now. So, Nate, I see you in the helicopter there. I want to start with Chad's kids' claims that he was framed. And I got to say, I mean, how would bodies be buried in a man's backyard, as we're seeing here, without him knowing?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, his kids would say that they live on a very rural, large property and that they're not there all the time and there's not any security cameras or whatever, so somebody could easily sneak onto the property and do this. I do believe, though, that in the court of law, Chad and his defense attorney are going to point to Lori and Alex, her deceased brother, and say, Chad had nothing to do with this. He wasn't aware of their activity, and that will be interesting to play out.
And so the authorities have now released text messages Lori and Chad sent each other while their spouses were still alive. In one, Chad compares himself to Harry Potter and calls Lori his goddess lover. Nate, again, you've been all over the story. You've got insights. Will you read the text that you have?
Yeah, so Chad sent this to Lori. He said, "Tonight I figured out who I feel like. I'm a grown-up version of Harry Potter who has to live with the Dudleys in his little space under the stairs. Every few weeks I get to escape and have amazing adventures with my goddess lover. But then I have to return to my place under the stairs feeling trapped. But I sense permanent freedom is coming."
Yeah, it's a very dark twist on a wonderful novel. I remember those scenes exactly, and I understand what he's trying to say, but it's a little bizarre coming from someone who's married. And now, of course, it could be used against him because his wife has died and was murdered, actually. It's been a sort of a mysterious process. Authorities say Chad also sent Lori a sexually explicit novel that he wrote for her based on their own love story, claiming they had been together over many past lives. So, Nate, with all this coming together, all these bits of evidence pointing to the fact there was something illicit going on, what has been the reaction from Chad and Tammy Daybell's family members, all of them, it's a bunch, since this information was released?
I think that they've just been shocked. They've been angry. So as they put together the pieces and all of this was released, they're looking back and realizing that Chad was not the person that they thought he was or is.
So 2 weeks before Tammy died, investigators say Chad sent Lori some extremely ominous messages claiming Tammy had been taken over by a demonic entity named Viola and that her personality would be changing soon. And then he said, I'm going to quote it, "Not fully sure of the timing for removal, but once her actions verify the differences, I don't want to wait." I mean, timing of removal, it's sort of a, it's a pretty, to me anyway, definitive statement. So Nate, you uncovered that Lori made a shocking purchase just days before Chad sent these demon texts.
Yeah, so it was a malachite ring she bought for $35.99 off of Amazon. You might think, well, what's the big deal in that? That same ring was seen in wedding photos with Lori and Chad, and that ring was purchased, I believe it was 17 days before Tammy died. But some new information that we've just learned from police as they've released all these new documents is that there appeared to be a search for that ring way back in the spring of 2019. So not only before Tammy's death, but before Charles's death, Lori's fourth husband. So these two appeared to be shopping for a wedding ring, or at least looking up information about a wedding ring long before both of their spouses were dead.
So Nate, as more evidence mounts against Chad, could we see him and Lori turn against each other?
Well, they've had a pretty united front up until the time they were arrested. And I will tell you, Dr. Oz, that Chad's attorney has not given any statements to the media, but I spoke with him yesterday. He told me that I could tell you this, that he intends to file a motion to sever the cases. I would imagine that can mean that the defense is going to be point and blame everything on Lori. If there was a united front, you could assume that they would proceed as they have been thus far. But he intends to file the motion to sever the cases. I think that this marriage could be on the rocks.
All right. With Chad Daybell's kids signaling their father may claim he was framed at trial and Lori Vallow currently ruled mentally unfit, could they both evade prosecution for their murders? Our show legal contributor Joy Jackson joins us now. Joy, could Lori be deceiving the courts in order to avoid prosecution?
So listen, Dr. Oz, anything's possible, but I think it's highly unlikely, and here's why. It's a very complex process. When someone, for example, is deemed to be unfit, you undergo a battery of examinations, right? With professionals who know this stuff. Thereafter, after you're undergoing that, the prosecution has a responsibility, really, to look at that, evaluate that, and see if they want to contest it, right? And so in this particular case, the prosecution looked at it and said, you know what? We're not controverting that. And so I think it's pretty valid. And remember also at the end of the day that there is no insanity defense in Idaho, so I don't think there's the concern that she can use this to her advantage. She's not going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe in a mental health hospital she'll stay, but it's not like you get out of jail by virtue of claiming that you just are incapacitated.
So if one day she is deemed to be sane enough to undergo trial, she doesn't go home, she just goes to trial at that point.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, you go through testing and there reaches a point, and this does happen, where the medical professionals get you ready enough and you come back enough where you could be deemed fit. So we have to monitor how this goes moving forward.
All right. Chad Daybell has pleaded not guilty to the charges he's facing. Lori Vallow will not enter a plea until she's found mentally fit to stand trial, but has a presumption of innocence, of course, until proven guilty. Up next, the woman who warned Chad his teachings would lead to death is here, breaking her silence on his belief in zombies and demons. We're back with the latest on doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her fifth husband, Chad Daybell. For years prior to meeting Lori, Chad ran a company that published books by religious authors, mostly from the Mormon or LDS Church. Suzanne Freeman was one of those authors, and also knew Chad's first wife, Tammy, who he is now accused of murdering. She joins us now. So, Suzanne, you say when you first met the Daybells, you thought they were a true love story. What stands out to you about Tammy now?
I remember she did a lot of the editing and formatting of the books. I don't believe Chad could have done it on his own, really. I like to think of her as the heart of the business, that she made it into a really good business.
So Chad began teaching that he had lived many past lives, that there was a call out for the end of the world. He said that end of the world call out would be coming soon. Explain to everybody what a call out is and how that impacted you.
So someone had a dream that they were shown that the prophet of our church was going to send letters to the, we call them stakes and wards. And there was going to be a meeting, and basically all the different areas of the church in America, just America. And they were going to be told that they have to pack up their food storage and everything and go to the girls' camps, pretty much. And I heard this dream years ago, back when I first knew Chad, and I told him that's bunk. That's not going to happen. The prophet is the prophet of the world. He's not going to do that. And for many different other reasons, I pulled away from that kind of idea because I never believed it was true.
So in 2017, after dispute with publishing rights, Suzanne, you sent Chad this email that I'm holding right now, warning him that his teachings would lead to death and sorrow. Death and sorrow was the word you have here. Did you ever imagine we'd be talking about 2 children killed, his wife Tammy murdered, and possibly more death and sorrow?
I never could imagine it. Oh my gosh, it's horrific to know somebody, as long as I've known him, and I felt as well as I known him, to go down that path is really disturbing. It's disturbing.
So you knew Tammy. So what has it been like to see the romantic texts that Chad sent to Lori while Tammy, his wife, was still alive?
I just thought Chad was a really good Latter-day Saint, father, husband. You know, I was impressed by that, and I thought, I just couldn't believe it.
So according to authorities, just weeks before Chad killed his wife, Tammy, he sent a text message to Lori Vallow claiming Tammy's body had been taken over by a demon named Viola. So Suzanne, again, you've known him for a long time. How much does that revelation disturb you?
It's unbelievable. I mean, you know, I just knew this one person, and this Chad Daybell is another Chad Daybell I never knew. And we had some very personal conversations that I actually sat with a murderer. It's been very difficult for me, very.
So prosecutors say that after Lori's daughter, Tylee, was murdered, her body was dismembered and burned before she was buried in Chad's backyard. In court, it's been alleged that Chad and Lori believed the 16-year-old Tylee had become a zombie. Suzanne, I know this is hard to go over again, but why do you think Tylee was killed?
My personal theory is she saw them kill Charles, and they wouldn't want to get caught, so they had to get rid of someone. So she made the zombie list.
Made the zombie list.
That is the most bizarre. Why wasn't his kids put on the zombie list?
So Chad's in an Idaho jail cell preparing for his murder trial. What do you want to say to him today? He'll probably see the show.
Just fess up. Tell the families what happened. That'll at least give peace to your family and to the others that have you just ruined their lives. Just do the right thing.
Do the right thing. It's a good mantra. Suzanne, thank you for being with us and sharing your story. Chad Daybell has pleaded not guilty to the charges he's facing. We'll continue to keep you up to date on this case as it develops. Coming up, authorities say Lori Vallow's brother was involved in a string of deaths linked to the Doomsday couple. His ex-wife reveals shocking claims of an inappropriate relationship between the siblings. Right after this. There are at least 4 shocking deaths linked to Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her husband, Chad Daybell. Her 4th husband, Charles, seen here, was shot by her brother, Alex Cox. Authorities say Alex, pictured here, also helped kill Lori's kids, JJ and Tylee, and buried them in Chad's backyard. And Chad is facing charges that he actually murdered his wife, Tammy. Now, police would love to question Alex about all these deaths, but he also passed away the day after Tammy's body was exhumed. You can't make this up. His autopsy revealed a clean toxicology report and that he had died of natural causes. But his involvement in all of Lori's alleged crimes has led many to question their interactions. Now authorities have released a shocking call they received from Alex's ex-wife, Debbie, in which she says Alex and his sister, Lori, had an inappropriate sibling relationship. Listen to how she claims the two acted in front of her when she was married to Alex.
They were simulating sex acts, which is not normal to me for a brother and a sister. For example, he would pick her up and she'd wrap her legs around his waist and he would kind of bounce her up and down on himself.
Okay.
In front of me, and they would moan and simulate sex acts.
Nate Eaton from East Idaho News is with us today. Nate, how long was Debbie married to Lori's brother, Alex?
Wasn't long, for only about a year back in 1992. She became very concerned early on in their marriage that he was a sex addict, that he had these inappropriate relationships with his sister and with other women, and so she quickly wanted to divorce him.
Now, throughout the half-hour call, Debbie claims that Alex would refer to his sister as hot, and he would sexualize her, which led the detective to ask if she ever suspected the siblings were sleeping together. This is her response.
Well, I asked him because he did touch her breasts and things, but they were allowed to do that in their family. So to him, he didn't think it was weird. He thought I was weird for thinking it was weird. It was just so blatant all the time when we were around her.
I mean, the behavior was normalized. Nate, have Lori's attorney or any of her living family members responded to these claims?
Her attorneys haven't said anything. I did speak with some family members who say that this isn't true, that this did not happen. And if it did happen, they were unaware of it. And I think they've been caught off guard by all of this coming out. They haven't issued anything officially publicly. But, you know, it is bizarre behavior, to say the least.
Weeks before his death, Alex Cox married again. And Arizona authorities also recently released their interrogation video with his widow. And I gotta say, it can stop me in my tracks. Why did she tell authorities she believes Alex almost killed her too?
Yeah, this was wild, Dr. Oz. They got married in Las Vegas. Alice was a massage therapist. She told the police that he never gave her any massage until the day after they got married. He said, "Why don't I give you a massage? You're stressed, you're tense." She agreed, but he said, "First, we need to go to the store and buy a plastic drop cloth, like the things you use when you're painting the house." And so they went to the store, they bought this cloth, he laid it out on the bed. He proceeds to give her this massage, and she says that she went into this deep sleep, like a trance, but she was kind of in and out of it, you know, that stage of sleep where you're kind of trying to wake up, but you're not. And she heard him talking to somebody. And it was a very in-depth conversation. And looking back now, she wonders if Alex was on the phone with Chad and Lori and if they were planning to kill her, if she would have been one of the spouses that died. I asked somebody very close to the investigation, do you think that this is a plausible thing? And this investigator told me, Zulema is very lucky to be alive today.
Oh, my goodness. All right, Nate, thank you. Alex's widow also claimed that he thought Chad and Lori were making him their fall guy. With him now dead, he's a permanently missing piece of this disturbing puzzle. So I want to bring in our show legal contributor, Joey Jackson, to weigh in on this as well. How worried are you? Or actually, more importantly, how worried are the prosecutors, do you think, that Chad and Lori's teams are going to blame this all on Alex? And he's dead anyway, so they're innocent.
I think that's the playbook. And when you know the playbook, meaning you're the prosecutor, and you know what the play of the defense is going to be, blame it on the person who's not here. I think you blunt that. How do you do that? I think you do it in a few ways. You say, number one, to the jury, listen, don't believe the hype. The reality is we cannot let, you should not let, in argument, of course, prosecutors will say, the missing person take the fall for this because it's so convenient that the defense would raise that issue. Number two, we want you, ladies and gentlemen, to follow the evidence, right? Look and examine the evidence. Anyone could say anything they wish, but what does the evidence show you? What does it tell you? Look and examine that. Number three, in evaluating that evidence, use your common sense as we ask you to do in jury selection. And what does that common sense point to? Does it point to the person who happens not to be here to defend themselves who did it? Or does it point to the people who are being seen and evaluated in this courtroom by you who are the ones that did it? And I think that's how it'll play out moving forward.
I'm glad I'm not against you in court. Very
You're very kind.
All right. Joy and Nate both for giving us a lot of insights into this complicated case because it continues to have so many tragic and bizarre twists and turns. We're going to continue to keep you up to date on the latest.